Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
They got it back to Chara in a goal! And right there was Marchand and couldn't get it into the empty net. Everything is happening.
Bob Cole, leaving us today at the age of 90, 50 years, entertaining us on Hockey Night in Canada. All of today's guests, including Marty Biron, standing by, are brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants are now taking deposits for the 24-25 season. Put your deposit down before May 3rd and receive a complimentary Giants hat. For more info, head to vancouvergiants.com or call 604-4-GIANTS. NHL playoffs continue tonight, and with that in mind, we bring in from TSN, Buffalo Sabres analyst on MSG, Marty Biron. Marty, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I was busy last few days with the playoffs. A late one last night as I was in Toronto and made my way back to Buffalo. But obviously, like everybody else, I'm saddened by the loss of Bob Cole. Like, we lost Rick Jeanneret last summer, and that really was felt here in Buffalo. I feel like Bob Cole was the voice of a generation, and more than one generation, multiple generations in Canada. I grew up watching the French Hockey Night in Canada, so I did not have that in my youth. But then when I came to Buffalo, we get Hockey Night in Canada on the cable channels here, like Detroit does as well. And then I listened to him more, and then I got to talk to him. When we would play on Hockey Night in Canada against the Leafs or the Canadians or during the playoffs, and what a great man he was, and he'll be really, really missed.
Couldn't agree with you more, Marty. Did you get to meet him at all as a broadcaster?
Many times. I remember, I remember in 2008, I was with the Flyers, right? And in the second round, we played the Montreal Canadiens. And I had a pretty cool sports car at the time, and this is the spring of '08, right? So it's getting nice in Philadelphia. I remember driving to the game, getting into the parking lot in the back with my sports car, and then passing right by Mr. Cole. And I got out of the car, and he looked at me and goes, "Nice car there. What do you got underneath the hood?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't really know. I don't know much about cars, Bob." So, but we talked about cars. We talked about other things. I used to love, even when I played, I loved sitting in my stall after practice in the morning skate and talking to the media people. That was what I loved to do. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because of the influence I had from people like Bob Cole. And but I do remember that encounter in Philly, because he was asking me about my car, and I had no idea. I just knew it went fast, and it was a cool car, but I had no idea what was under the hood.
and Marty, hats off to you, the only NHL player in history that enjoyed talking to media people, so we appreciate that. I'm kidding, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Marty, can you relate to what Casey DeSmith is going through right now? Backup goaltender being pressed into action, injury to the number one stud at the most important time of year.
Funny enough, I can't, because in all my years as a backup goaltender, I never went into a playoff game as the backup. I played playoff games, but I was the starter in Philly when that happened. Behind Dominik Hasek, behind Ryan Miller, behind Henrik Lundqvist, I never got a sniff of a minute in the playoffs. Those guys always played. Luckily, they were never hurt. They always played. But I do remember, and we talk about Hockey Night in Canada, in the 99 conference finals, Buffalo, Toronto. I was in Rochester, and I got called up for game 1 and 2 in Toronto, and I didn't know what was going on. Hasek was injured, and Dwayne Rolison had to go in. And I remember Dwayne Rolison playing a really good game 1, where we won the game, I think 6-4, and then struggled in game 2. But I remember the immense pressure. I was watching Roley basically putting the weight of the world on his shoulders because he had to go in for Dominik Hasek, right?
Yeah.
And I think of Casey DeSmith having to go in for Thatcher Demko. It's very similar. Not that Demko is Dominik Hasek. Hasek had already won Hart trophies and Vezina trophies by then, but the impact and the leadership and the play of Demko this year could be, top 2, top 3 in the league when it comes to goaltenders. So having to replace that is hard. And I feel like the Canucks also played differently when Demko is behind them, they play a little looser. Okay, let's get some offense. And the numbers prove that. They score over a half a goal per game more with Demko in net than they did this year with DeSmith. So there's a lot of pressure on DeSmith to perform because he wants to give his team the feeling like, hey, you can score goals for me. You can play offense. And right now it's not happening.
Hey, Marty, Colorado, Winnipeg, 20 goals in 2 games. Edmonton, LA, 20 goals, 2 games. All those goalies in that series, goals against average over 4. Halibuck's at over 5. What's going on there with all these goals?
Well, Colorado, Georgiev struggled down the stretch, right? So you had to expect that he was going to be one to struggle maybe. And in game 1, if Justus Eninen wasn't sick and would have backed up, I think we would have seen him in game 1 at some point. That would have changed the dynamic of that game. I'm not worried about Connor Hellebuyck right now because I think Connor Hellebuyck is the type of person that is just going to say, okay, you know what? Game 1, we still won 7-6. Game 2, I wasn't great. I made a blunder for the goal that tied it up behind the net, and then I gave up a goal. Actually, it was 3-2, the blunder behind the net, and then he gives up a goal to Josh Manson on a breakaway. It's a breakaway at the end of the second, but you still got to make a save there. I think Connor Hellebuyck is like, I got this. I'm fine. And that's because he's got that experience. I'm a little worried, that the Jets weren't able to break through on Georgiev in game 2, but that's another thing. Stuart Skinner last night gives up 5 to the LA Kings.
Yep.
A couple of them I didn't love. Look, the second Kempe goal is all world, right? He bats it out in the air. That's fine. But the goal that made it 4-3, I wasn't in love with that. I'm thinking if you can keep it at 3, you're going to win. But he gives up a long range shot and there was nobody in front of the net. The Kopitar game-winning goal was a laser, but still, like, you win the game if you make that save, you lose if you don't. So there's definitely some question. The only series that has had great goaltending is Florida, Tampa.
Yeah.
Both goalies have been unbelievable, and I'm looking forward to that matchup tonight because Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky, it's going to be a fun game to watch again.
Marty, do you now know why nobody wanted to play Vegas in round 1? They go into Dallas, win those 2. Are you surprised? Like, Dallas is the number 1 team in the West.
Yeah, I am not surprised because I actually had not picked Dallas to win the West when everybody was close, like Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas were all at 91 points with a month left of the season. I said it's going to be Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas. I've not been on the Dallas bandwagon this year, even though they're a great team. I love their team. I love their depth. Not been a fan of Jake Ottinger this year, so that really kind of, clouds my judgment a little bit when it comes to Dallas. Maybe I put him down a little bit more, and I think that's a big reason. Like, Ottinger was really good in game 2, but I didn't love the goal that he gave up to Noah Hannafin that made it 2-1. Really, that's a game-winning goal. So I'm like, it doesn't matter if you make 4 great saves. It's the one that really you give up. Samsonov last night against Boston. He was great, right? Save on Zaka on the breakaway. Early in the game, a save on the deflection. Then JVR, save on a breakaway. But you give up the goal to Trent Frederick to make it 1-1. Like, that can't happen. Yeah. And so I get it's human, you make mistakes. It's going to happen, but you're going to lose games if you make mistakes. I felt like Jake Ottinger made a mistake on the Hannafin goal. They lost the game. Samsonov made a mistake on the Frederick goal. They lost the game. That's what's happening. So I'm not big on Dallas. No, I'm not surprised Vegas is doing as good as they are, but I think this is more on Dallas not being able to play at the level that they did down the stretch.
Marty, before we let you go, Buffalo Sabres, do you understand what they're doing, bringing back Lindy Ruff?
Yes, and really, I think it's because it's Buffalo and Lindy was here for 15 years. It's close, right? People are saying, oh, recycling old coaches. But it's a new GM. It's Kevin Adams picking Lindy. Like, if Kevin Adams was the GM of the Minnesota Wild and he hired Lindy Ruff, nobody would say it's recycling an old coach. No, he's got comfort with Lindy. Lindy is still a really, really talented coach. He's evolved so much over the years. He's learned from Roger Nielsen. He's learned from Scotty Bowman. He's learned from a lot of those guys that always evolve, always thought, what's the next step? And I think Lindy's a really good coach. Now, it plays on the heartstring of the fan base here in Buffalo. And after 13 years missing the playoffs, you gotta play on some strings at some point. But I think the pick for him as a coach, I think, is a really good one. We'll just see if the success comes.
Okay, and very quickly, Marty, I want to get back to the Canucks just for 1 second because it involves goaltending. Thatcher Demko, injured, knee issue again, makes the trip, though, to Nashville on the plane, walking around. What does that tell you in terms of his immediate future and maybe coming back to play in these playoffs?
Seriously, nothing. I had a broken collarbone my first year with the New York Rangers. I was out for 12 weeks. 6 weeks in, we started the playoffs. And I was on the road. I was the third guy. I still had a sling in my arm. Like, I wanted to be part of the team. I think they want Thatcher Demko around. So unless we see him on the ice, we see him getting ready, it doesn't mean anything for me. I saw the sequence in the last minute of the game when he went reverse VH off the left post. The game's over. It's so unfortunate. But I'll tell you this. So my son's a goalie. The last 2 seasons that he played junior hockey, last 2 years, both of his goalie partners got hurt in the similar situation, going to the reverse VH and then tweaking either the ankle or the knee. It's, if you get it right, it's perfect. But if you get it wrong and you tweak something, it's unfortunate. And that's what happened to Demko. It's a non-contact injury, but I've seen those happen a lot. And it's unfortunate because he was so good for the Vancouver Canucks when healthy this year, and now they don't have him.
Let me get this straight, Marty. You are the parent of a young goaltender? What kind of hockey parent are you? Is that tough on him?
No, it's actually not, because he's on his own. Like, he's better than I was. I feel like he's going to play college hockey in the U.S. next year. But
awesome.
Still, like, it's great. But we tried not to steer him in that direction. We tried to put him as a player first, and he watched a lot of back in the days, like Eric Bolton and Andrew Peters and the tough guys that I was with the Sabres, Riley Cote with the Flyers and all of that, right? So what he did on the ice, he cross-checked, he hit, he slashed, he tripped. I'm like, we got to get this kid off the ice because he's going to hurt somebody. So he wanted to go in net. We're like, this is a safe place. He's not going to hurt anybody. And he stayed there. So it worked out for us. I think it was less stressful in the net than he was when he was crushing people as a 6-year-old.
Okay, Marty, thanks for this. And by the way, just stick around for a second here. Patrick Alvin just called. He wants your kid's number. They might need him in the next couple of weeks. We appreciate this.
That and Luongo's quick on the dial, too. Try to get him in. So
out of retirement. Maybe Marty Biron. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.